has inspired me. And we need inspiration because everything in Canada feels broken these days. After 8 years of Trudeau, rental prices have doubled. In Vancouver, it now costs $3,600 to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. And try to think of a single mother who's a waitress, a single room for her kids to all sleep in together. That is mathematically impossible. Canada wasn't like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. We're going to turn the hurt that Trudeau has caused into the hope Canadians need.
My husband shared so many of his childhood memories because, as you know, Pierre is actually born in Alberta, and he was adopted and raised by 2 school teachers from Saskatchewan. And my family immigrated here when I was really young, and it is in Quebec, en français, et en espagnol, that I was raised.
And he said, Pierre, I have an important question for you. Do you believe in free speech? I said, yes. He said, how would you like to give one?
The same method that in China, the CCP Communist Party uses a divide and conquer strategy. Actually, I call it scheme conspiracy.
I saw you doing a little dance in there, and also here you had a little chant. You were saying something.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Trudeau must go. And then all of a sudden Pierre popped up and my jaw just dropped. Where did this guy come from? I was like, wow. I was crying, actually, to tell you the truth.
We've got Cam with us here. He's a longtime Surrey resident. How was the rally for you, Cam?
I enjoyed it a lot. I was very happy to hear Pierre talk.
For them, because God only knows that they carry their friends, their family, and their nation on their back, and so a quiet hymn goes out for them. There goes greatness. These great common people, the common sense of the common people, united for our common home, your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Hello, we are here at the Mirage Banquet Hall in Surrey, where we attended the Pierre Poilievre rally. I just wanted to do a little disclaimer here that the views that we are doing in this broadcast do not reflect Sanjha TV's views, but they are the views of the public that we are going to show you today. So ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵੈਸਟ ਅੱਜ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਗਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਰਾਉਂਡ ਟੇਬਲ in Burnaby at the Hilton Hotel ਉੱਥੇ Pierre Poilievre ਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ different media outlets ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੀ questions ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ answer ਕੀਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਸੋ ਉਹਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਇਸ ਬ੍ਰੌਡਕਾਸਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਪਏ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਰੈਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਸ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਪਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਬਸ ਇਹੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਆ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੀ ਇਹੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਆ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਲੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਰੈਲੀ ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਰਾਉਂਡ ਟੇਬਲ ਵੀ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਾਂਗੇ ਚਲੋ ਲੈਟਸ ਗੋ
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming. Ça me fait plaisir d'être ici avec ma femme, Anaïda. It's a pleasure to be here with my wonderful wife, Anna. I know I've met most of you before, but I don't think she has. So I thought it would be nice if we got a chance to introduce her. Anna and I have been traveling across British Columbia. We were actually started in Calgary, went to the Stampede, then we were off to Penticton, Trail, Castlegar, Surrey. We're doing Vancouver, and of course we've got a big, beautiful rally tonight. And I just see the arrival of the great Carrie Lynn Finlay, who's the whip of our party and the member for Surrey White Rock in the House of Commons. Thank you very much for coming. You know, meeting so many British Columbians over the last several days has inspired me. And we need inspiration because everything in Canada feels broken these days. After 8 years of Trudeau, life costs more, work doesn't pay, Housing costs have doubled. Crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder reign in our streets. Today, the news came out that after 8 years of Trudeau, rental prices have doubled. In Vancouver, it now costs $3,600 to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. And try to think of a single mother who's a waitress paying $3,600 a month or $40,000 a year just to rent a room for herself and then a single room for her kids to all sleep in together. That is mathematically impossible. And that is why we see homelessness rampant in our streets, tent cities, rising crime, suicides. This is the chaos and brokenness that Trudeau has caused. But the good news is that Canada wasn't like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. We're going to turn the hurt that Trudeau has caused into the hope Canadians need. We're going to bring home lower prices by axing the carbon tax. We're going to cap government spending with a new dollar-for-dollar law that requires the government find $1 of savings for every new $1 of spending. And that will allow us to balance our budget, to bring down inflation and interest rates. Right now, inflation is being driven by government spending. In fact, the money supply in Canada has grown by about 32% in the last 3 years. The economy has only grown by 4%. So the amount of money in the economy is growing almost 10 times faster than the goods and services that money buys. The more dollars buying fewer goods means higher prices. Trudeau is paying for his spending by printing cash, creating more money. And when you have more money to buy fewer goods, you get higher prices. It's always been that way. But if we cap spending with a law that requires we find $1 of savings for every new $1 of spending, then that will allow the taxpayer and the economy to catch up. We're going to cut waste, stop sending so much money to foreign dictatorships, slow the growth of the bureaucracy, and bring home balanced budgets that will lower the cost of living for Canadians. We're joined by Bob Zimmer from Northern British Columbia, Brad Viss from the Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, and we also have Tracy Gray from the Okanagan, part of your British Columbia Conservative team. And we're going to bring home more powerful paychecks. Right now, it doesn't pay to work in Canada. You earn an extra $1, you get clawed back on your child benefit. You pay income tax, payroll tax, and then carbon and gas tax just to get to work. So if you're earning 60 grand a year with a couple of kids, you earn another $1, you lose 80 cents of that $1. That's in clawbacks and taxes combined. We're punishing work. We need to reward work. This should be a country where people who work hard get ahead. And that's why I'm going to reform the programs and cut income taxes so you bring home more of each $1 you earn, and hard work once again pays off. And speaking of bringing home a paycheck, you need a home to bring it to. Vancouver is now the third most expensive housing market in the world. More expensive than Tokyo, New York City, San Francisco, London, England, even more expensive than Singapore, places with less land, more people, and more money. And yet we're paying more here. Why is that? Well, yesterday we were reminded why. We have the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even with the most land to build on. We have too many people chasing too few homes. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, worth repeating. We have house prices in Canada have doubled under Justin Trudeau. The rent has doubled under Justin Trudeau. The needed down payment has doubled. Mortgage payments have all doubled. It's double trouble for housing with Justin Trudeau. In fact, our housing is almost double in price what it is in the United States when they have more people to house and less land to house them on. It doesn't make sense. Yesterday, CMHC found that Vancouver has the highest prices in Canada because it has the slowest building permits in Canada. Toronto has the second highest prices. What do they have? The second slowest building permits. These delays prevent builders from building, and all of the extra costs of that are put onto the customer. C.D. Howe estimates that government bureaucracy and taxes adds $1 million to the cost of every new home in Vancouver. $1 million per home in bureaucracy and taxes that are embedded in those costs. So my plan is this. I will require big cities permit 15% more home building per year, or they will lose federal grants. Those that beat the 15% goal are going to get a building bonus. So we're going to incentivize City Hall to get out of the way, free up land, speed up and lower the cost of building permits. I'll require every federally funded transit station be pre-zoned for high-density apartments so that students and seniors can live right next to the bus and train. When I was a university student, not without a lot of money, I lived with my dad at the Heritage Station, right next to the Heritage Station in an apartment, so I could finish my essay 30 minutes before the deadline, run down, leave late, arrive early. Every student should be able to live next to the train so that they can procrastinate on their essay as well. But we need to build next to transit. We're going to sell off 6,000 buildings. We've got these big, ugly federal buildings that are empty because so many are now working from home. Sell them off. We have tens of thousands of surplus acres of federal land. Sell it off for housing and put a covenant on it that the housing has to be affordable. We're going to let in more immigrants with skills in the building trades. They can help us build those homes. And we're going to make sure that tradespeople get the same benefits as students as those who go to university. That's how we're going to build the millions of new homes that will make life affordable for our youth. In neighborhoods that are safe, crime is raging in our streets. Look at these tent cities. Innocent people stabbed just yesterday or the day before. A mother from Toronto was shot dead by someone who was out of jail even though he had violated probation orders 16 times. In Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times in 1 year. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. Why? Trudeau's catch and release justice system, which allows the same criminal to be arrested in the morning, released by noon, arrested again for another crime, released in time to do his third crime in 1 day. Our police in Vancouver will tell you, they arrest the same people 4 or 5 times a day, but Trudeau's catch and release system allows them to go free. I'm going to bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders with a law that that prevents repeat offenders from getting bail, requires them to serve their entire sentence if they have racked up a long rap sheet of crimes. We're also going to get the drugs off our street. Trudeau and the NDP have decriminalized crack cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, and other hard drugs. And what do you know? The overdoses are going up. The violence has increased. I'm going to ban hard drugs. Only the Conservatives will ban hard drugs. We'll stop giving out tax-funded opioids and instead give recovery and treatment for those who are addicted. And we know that those pharmaceutical companies that pushed those opioids into our system years ago started this crisis. The American government has sued them and got $54 billion in settlements. I'm going to sue the big pharmaceutical companies and collect billions of dollars of penalties from them for having started this crisis, and I will use the money that we bring in from those lawsuits to pay for more recovery, more rehabilitation, more detox, so that we can bring our loved ones home drug-free. We want to bring home the Canada that we know and love, and that immigrants came to. It's the country I grew up in that gave me the chance, the country that my wife came to as a refugee. It's a country that we do no longer see, but is one that we can restore. And it was with a great deal of hope that we work to restore it together. Thank you very much.
I just want to say welcome to Granville's Tracy Gray, Pierre Poilievre, and Bob Zimmer.
And Frank Caputo snuck in too. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course, the lovely Anna.
Thank you.
And the Honorable Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you.
So welcome to British Columbia, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I'm Sonia West from Sanjha TV. My question is regarding immigrants that come to this country, the land of opportunity. You know, it's the classic story where you go to Canada, we're going to make some money, we're going to, become so accomplished, and everybody has that dream. But when we send our relatives from India to Canada, and they're doctors, they're nurses, and they get here, and now they're food delivery drivers, and the laborers, it's disheartening to see that dream crushed.
Yes.
So if you can speak to how you will rectify that, if in fact you do become Prime Minister.
Are you speaking specifically about professionals?
Yes.
Yes.
Specifically about nurses and doctors, because
Right.
many of us are waiting. We all know how we wait in emergency rooms, and most of us don't even have a family doctor.
Yes. So we have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses banned from working in our hospital system because they have no simple way to prove if they're qualified. So they go to the professional bodies and they wait and they apply and they have their background checked and they bring in more and more documentation. Never does anything get done. The problem is that we're trying to piece together their entire educational and professional history when that's impossible. What we need to do is have a merit-based test to judge their competency. We have that in the trades. If you want to be an electrician, you write the Red Seal trade exam. We have a Red Seal carpenter right here. So he, with his Red Seal, can practice anywhere in Canada as a carpenter. But if he were an engineer, he would not be able to do that because there's no similar test. So what I propose is that we do nationwide in the professions what we've already done in the trades. Bring in a Blue Seal exam. I will bring the premiers together to agree on a merit-based exam. So immigrant professionals can write the test and within 60 days of applying to work in their profession, get a yes or no based on their tested ability, not based on where they come from. I'll give you an example of how this can work. We have Filipino nurses in Canada. Only 11% of them are allowed to practice, according to the Filipino ambassador. She said in the States, they write an international nursing exam, a global standard for nursing. And within a few weeks, they can get licensed and go and work in an American hospital. Why don't we take that exam, bring it here and call it the Blue Seal Canadian Nursing Exam, and let the nurses write it, get the Blue Seal, and then be licensed to practice anywhere in Canada. That's the easiest way that we can get tens of thousands of doctors and nurses who are already here from other countries working and bring home better health care for our people and paychecks for our immigrants. Do you have a follow-up on that, or is that all?
No, that's satisfying answer.
The other thing I wanted to say is we're going to bring in 30,000 study loans, so those immigrants that come here not quite qualified can get the money to take time off work, study up to the Canadian standard, pass the test, and get to work. And we'll make that Blue Seal system available to future immigrants so they can begin studying and preparing before they even arrive. And that way, when they come, they can immediately take the Blue Seal and get to work in our hospitals. This is the most extensive and practical solution for immigrant professionals we've ever seen, and I will implement it with great speed when I'm Prime Minister. Thank you.
I am so enthused to be here in Cloverdale tonight. My name is Brad Viss. I'm the Member of Parliament for Mission Matsqui, Fraser, Canada. And it is good to be with friends. Now, just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First off, where's my friend Bob Zimmer? Bob Zimmer, you take us. Bob Zimmer, MP from up north. We got Frank Caputo from Kamloops. And Tracy Gray from Kelowna. This guy's awesome. Now, there's also a number of other very, very important people in this crowd. That is all of the volunteers with local EDAs and EDA presidents. So if you are on an EDA or an EDA president, please stand up. Let's give our grassroots volunteers the thanks they deserve. That is awesome. Good to see you all here tonight. Now I promise, just a couple couple more housekeeping items. Now, you might be aware, like the rally in the Okanagan the other night, that today our rally is being live streamed across Canada. So I'm going to ask, yeah, that's right, let's send a message, Canada! Let's send a message, Canada! I love this. So, all of you, take out your cell phone, go to Pierre's Facebook page, go to his Twitter. I'm serious, we gotta work together here. Let's go to his Facebook, let's go to his Twitter, and let's share the live stream right now. Can you all do that for me? Awesome. And the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, as a member of Parliament, I have a lot of people come to me and say, Brad, I can't handle it anymore, what can we do? Well, the number one thing you can do is start sharing and commenting positively on Pierre Poilievre's social media posts. Can we get an agreement that we're all going to do a little bit more of that for Pierre? Awesome. Now the second thing is you can get involved with one of your local EDAs and you can volunteer for the Conservative Party of Canada. We are going to need each and every one of you to defeat this out-of-touch government when the next election is called. Do I have your support? All right. Now thirdly, to run big events like this, I'm encouraging everyone to continue supporting the Conservative Party financially. We cannot do it without our grassroots donors, so all of you who already are donating to our party, thank you. Your money is used wisely, and our number one issue is to defeat Justin Trudeau in the next election, so thank you for supporting us. And finally, if you don't have a Conservative Party membership, please go sign up online. It's super easy. We want you part of our family. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Anna Poilievre. Let's all give her a big round of applause. That's not loud enough. Oh, there she comes, all right. I'm just going to stop right there and hand it on over.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here in the beautiful West Coast. It has been such a pleasure to be by my husband's side and to travel in the West Coast. We started in Alberta and then here we are in Vancouver. And as we go in this journey, my husband shared so many of his childhood memories because, as you know, Pierre is actually born in Alberta and he was adopted and raised by 2 school teachers from Saskatchewan. Every summer, his family will pack up, jump in a car, and come spend their family vacation right here in British Columbia. He is also a committed, strong member of Parliament for Ontario. And I find that all of this helps him and gives him a great perspective of the different issues that everyday common people in Canada face in different parts of our country. I, on the other hand, I'm born in Venezuela, and my family immigrated here when I was really young, and it is in Quebec, en français, y en espagnol, that I was raised. And despite our different backgrounds, we share the same values, and we have similar upbringings. Our family's been raised in a very modest and humble way, living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I also find that those different backgrounds, united with our shared values, it is what makes us a very strong couple. And it is that kind of unity that we want for our Canada, the country we love. Now, I promise you that we wouldn't be this far away from our babies if we didn't believe in the fight that we have to undertake. We are fighting to bring some common sense back to our country for our common people. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is such a pleasure for me to share with you my strong and loving husband, our leader, the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Wow, what a crowd. Who's ready to axe the carbon tax? Who's ready for homes you can actually afford? Who's ready to launch a big rally that grows into a bigger movement that leads to replacing Justin Trudeau? Thank you, Brad, for that incredible introduction. He's always rocking in the free world. In fact, he called me not long ago, and he said, Pierre, I have an important question for you. Do you believe in free speech? I said, yes. He said, how would you like to give one? And that's how I ended up here today, giving these remarks. We just came from the beautiful Kelowna region, the greater Okanagan. We were there with Tracy Gray, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Employment. When we got there, she said, Pierre, we have to visit our seniors. They built this country. She said she wanted to take me to a seniors home in Penticton. So I said, Tracy, they're not going to want to see some politicians from Ottawa at the seniors home. She said, no, you'll be a big star. So I went in and I walked up to a lady and I said, do you know who I am? She said, no, but if you ask the nurse, she'll tell you who you are. Oh my goodness. And it's great to have the Bob Zimmer, the champion of hunters and anglers. When I started my career, I was getting into a little bit of trouble speaking too much. I was a young man with a lot to say, and my mouth moved faster than my brain. So I thought maybe I'd go see Bob, because he was a former high school teacher. He taught shop class, and he'll have some wisdom. My folks were teachers. I always respected teachers. So he brought me into his office, and he sat me down, and he said, Pierre, this is my advice to you. You see that fish on the wall, which I caught back home in BC? You see that fish? If he kept his mouth shut, he'd still be alive. I never listened to his advice on that one, though. But it's great to also have Frank Caputo from Kamloops. He is our Associate Shadow Minister of Justice. We're going to pick up justice. But most of all, it is great to have my wonderful wife, Ida, here. Isn't she incredible? Saying, what's she doing with this guy? Well, she's met this beautiful woman, and she has such a different story on the outside, right? But actually, if you look closely, our story is all the same. It's the Canadian story. Now, my family might have come about 100 years before hers arrived, but they came for the same reason. That reason was freedom. They wanted to live in the freest country on earth. I was born to an unwed mother who was 16 years old, who put me up for adoption, but my parents taught me that in Canada, it didn't matter where you came from, it mattered where you were going. It didn't matter who you knew, it mattered what you could do. That's the country that Anna came to. But it's not the country that we see when we look around us today, is it? After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, life costs more. Work doesn't pay. Housing costs have doubled. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common in our streets, and he divides to distract from this horrendous track record. He wants all the power and none of the responsibility. But here's the good news, my friends. Canada was not like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Into the hope that Canadians need. We're going to rely on the common sense of the common people to do it, right? The basic values that built our country over the centuries, the values of hard work, of family, faith, and freedom. These values are eternal, and they work everywhere and always. They are not old ideas, they are not new ideas, they are timeless ideas, and we're going to restore them, starting with the issue of inflation. We're going to bring home lower prices. Let's talk about why we have is insane inflation that we've seen over the last several years. Well, let me... Just inflation. That sums it up right there. Speaking of money, can someone lend me a quarter? Anybody got a quarter handy? No, everyone's broke. Anybody got a quarter? Nobody's got a quarter. He's got a quarter here. All right, here we go. Quarter. There we go. Yeah. Only half of it for now. So, you ever feel the edge of a quarter? You see it's kind of a rough edge? Do you know what those little rivets are? You know why they're there? So you can't shave off the edge of the quarter. You know where that idea came from? The British pound. The British pound was actually made of a pound of silver. So fraud artists used to shave off the edge of the pound, then they'd melt it down to make more pounds. And in fact, King Henry VIII would actually do this himself. When he'd collect the taxes, he'd have his minters clip off just a little edge of the pound so that he could melt it down, make more money, and spend more money. He had no ability to control his spending. He had inherited the crown from his father. Remind you of anybody? Right? But when he would clip off the end of that coin, he'd make more coins. But obviously that would increase the supply of money. And that's what politicians do when they print and create cash for their spending. They clip off the edge of your coin. It's worth less than it was before. The 25 cents of today only buys you 20 cents worth tomorrow. And that's what Justin Trudeau's been doing with the money creation he has done over the last several years. Let me give you some stats here. In 2020, there was $1.8 trillion in Canada. That's coins, bills, banknotes, and checking account deposits. 1.8 trillion. Because of all the cash that Trudeau's government created, that went up to $2.4 trillion. That's how much $600 billion of additional cash has been created in the last 3 years, during which time the output of the economy only grew by 4%. So let's get this straight. The economy grew by 4%, and the money supply grew by 32%, almost 10 times faster. So you have 10 times as much money chasing the goods and services that you buy. If you have 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's a buck a loaf. You double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 loaves of bread, all of a sudden it's $2 a loaf. More money chasing the same goods equals higher prices. And King Henry VIII, when he did this, he started to get creative, because people were noticing that their coins were clipped and they didn't want to take the clipped coins anymore. So what he did is he melted down the coins, and he filled the inside with copper, so there'd only be a tiny little layer of silver around the outside. Then he could make more coins with the same amount of silver. The problem was he put his face on the coin. He was a narcissist. Does that remind you of anyone? In fact, he was such a narcissist that he made his face look forward off the coin. He didn't even use a side angle. And his nose poked on the front of the coin, and when it rubbed on the inside of people's pant pockets, that silver would rub off, and the nose would turn copper red. So they called him Old Copper Nose. And whenever you saw his nose as red on that coin, you knew he had robbed the purchasing power of your money. So if you see Justin Trudeau with a red nose, you know exactly what it means, right? I'm going to give you your quarterback now. I'm not a liberal. I'm not going to pocket it. All right, we'll give it to the little one. This is kind of like the opposite of how the country's run right now. Right now, we're running up a national debt, taking for her generation to spend on the politicians of today. But we're going to give her a quarter. That's the least we can do with the $1 trillion debt her generation is inheriting, right? But what we're actually going to do in reality is stop the crazy money printing. Stop the addition of new debt. The Prime Minister has added more debt than all previous Prime Ministers combined. We have to control our spending. And that's why a Poilievre-led government will bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. You make those trade-offs in your life. about it. That's how a single mom budgets her household. If she wants to spend more on a family vacation, well, she doesn't build that patio. Or maybe she goes and gets a deal on the wood from the local construction yard and gets a deal on the vacation in order to come in under budget. But the reality is she has a fixed budget for recreation. She can't exceed that budget. Everyday people, every creature in the universe, the fish in the seas, the birds in the trees, they all have to live by the law of scarcity. Maximize use of limited resources. The only creature in the universe that does not have to do that is the politician, because he just passes that on to others in the form of inflation, higher debt, and higher taxes. This law will impose the scarcity on politicians, so they have to make the same disciplined trade-offs that small businesses and single moms and seniors make every day. You've been pinching your pennies long enough. It's time for government to pinch pennies too. And then we're going to axe the carbon tax. You'll never believe this. Axe the tax. 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 You'll never believe it. Today I was well, you will believe it actually. I was at a grocer's, I went to a grocer in Vancouver, and we did a press conference. And I talked about how the carbon tax was raising the price of everything. And this liberal journalist put up his hand and said, oh, well, there's a study out of Europe that shows that carbon taxes actually bring down the price of things. Can you believe that? Did anybody see this? It's unbelievable. He said it was, it's kind of like the budget balances itself, right? So anyway, he said, do you have any data to disprove this amazing study that I pulled out of Europe? And said, yes, and Anna said, yes, in fact, I think we do have a study that will help. Let's go talk to the owner of the grocery store and ask him what he thinks. And this gentleman came out, and he said, ever since the price of fuel has gone up with all these taxes, it raises the price of shipping the food to his store. It raises the price of the farmer to produce the food. And when you raise the cost on the farmer who makes the food and the trucker who ships the food, you raise the price on the food itself. And that journalist just sort of stood there, dumbfounded, not able to understand how costs are passed down to consumers. I'll tell you another example. There's the Little Miracles of Manotick, a tomato farm south of Ottawa. They grow these beautiful little tiny tomatoes, but Trudeau charges a carbon tax on the CO2 that they release into the greenhouse, even though the plant life absorbs it. It doesn't even go into the atmosphere. Apparently Justin missed that day in science class. So the end result is that the Manotick tomato is more expensive in Manotick than the Mexican tomato, because the Mexicans don't have to pay the Trudeau tax. So we're sending a price signal to our customers to buy the tomato that had to be transported by truck and train, burning fossil fuels right across North America, shipping our money abroad rather than buying the local, environmentally friendly tomato. Ladies and gentlemen, we should be a nation that feeds itself. Let's axe the tax on our farmers. And we're speaking of bringing it home. We want you to bring home powerful paychecks again. Work doesn't pay in Canada, does it? You go out and earn extra buck. You know, there's a story of a little boy asking his dad, what is an income tax form? And the father said to the little boy, it's the opposite of your school report card. The better you do, the worse you do. Income tax is the fine you pay for the crime of working hard. We punish hard work in this country. In fact, it's not just income tax, it's payroll tax and clawbacks of benefits. A single mom earning $60,000 a year with 3 kids who goes out and earns another dollar loses 80 cents of it to clawbacks and taxes. That's out of her $25 an hour wage, she loses $20, 80%. No one should be expected to work for that measly $5. So Pierre Poilievre-led government will reform our programs and cut income taxes so you bring home more of each dollar you earn. And hard work pays off. it possible for all Canadians to earn a great paycheck by removing the government gatekeepers who stand in their way. Think of it, our healthcare system. We have an incredible doctor shortage. We were just over, we'll come to that in a second. I'll tell you something. We were just yesterday in Vancouver talking with a group of doctors. A cancer surgeon told me that in the last month, 6 of his patients died before they could get to see him for the first appointment. 6 more died before they could get to the operating room. And 10 more he cut open, and when he did, he found that the cancer had been allowed to spread so much because of the delays that he sewed them right back up and told them that there was no hope and that they just had to live out what few days they had left. Only 2% of his patients are actually getting served in the prescribed time period. That is the state of our healthcare system at the same time as we have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses already in Canada as citizens who are banned from working because there's no simple way for them to prove whether they're qualified. We already have a way to do that for the trades. It's called the Red Seal exam. You take the Red Seal, you prove that you're a good electrician or a carpenter, you get the seal, you can work anywhere in Canada. We have no such thing for our professionals like doctors and nurses. That's why a Pierre Poilievre-led government will create a Blue Seal exam, a high national standard. So that Canadian kids that go to medical school abroad, or immigrants who come here with a professional background, can take the exam within 2 or 3 weeks of applying. They can get a yes or no based on their tested ability. We can get more doctors, more nurses, and more powerful paychecks for our brilliant immigrants. And by the way, the simplest way to bring nurses and doctors into the system is to get rid of these ridiculous vaccine mandates. Hire them back. Absolutely. Hire them back. 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 Powerful paychecks for everyone. Everyone, regardless of their personal decisions, regardless of where they were born. Everybody who is qualified, who works hard, should have a chance to serve and earn a powerful paycheck and bring it home, but they need a home to bring it to. We used to take that for granted. When I was a kid, I knew if you grew up, you graduated, got a decent job, you would have a home by your mid-20s. Now, it actually takes 25 years in Toronto or Vancouver for the average income to save up enough for a down payment on a house. If you start saving at 24, you're 49, if you're lucky, to buy the most basic home. That is insane. In fact, we were in Penticton. I spoke to a lady who works in the community housing sector. She said there are 70-year-olds who are living in their cars. There was one woman yesterday on the news who is a nurse living in her van. A nurse! These are people who had homes their entire lives. But because rent is doubled, now the landlords renovate, kick the tenant out, double the rent, and the people can no longer afford to go anywhere. There's nowhere else for them to go. Why? Because we have the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7. And that's why housing costs have doubled under Trudeau. The average rent is doubled. The average housing price is doubled. The average mortgage payment has doubled. Our housing is twice as expensive as in the United States of America, even though they have 10 times the people to house on a smaller landmass. Hey. Vancouver is now the 3rd most expensive housing market in the world. It's above Manhattan, Los Angeles, Chicago, London, England, even Singapore, which is an island. All these places have more people, more money, and less land, and yet somehow their houses are more affordable than ours here in Canada, the 2nd biggest country on earth. where we have 33 NFL-sized football fields for every man, woman, and child, and somehow we can't find the space to house everyone. What is going on? The answer is government gatekeepers are blocking construction. It takes between 7 and 10 years to get a building permit or a zoning approval for a neighborhood. The slowest place to get a building permit in Canada is Vancouver, and it's the most expensive place. The second slowest is Toronto, and it's the second most expensive place. Are you seeing the correlation here? In fact, this government gatekeeping, according to a study by CEO Institute, adds $1 million to the price of each home. The delays, the fees, the charges, the lawyers, the consultants, the zoning changes, the uncertainty, all of that gets passed on to the end user. These are the gatekeepers who are blocking our homes for our kids. And here is my common sense plan. I am going to send a signal to all the big city gatekeepers. You want federal infrastructure money, you have to get out of the way and let builders build homes. The number of dollars that cities get for infrastructure to the number of houses they allow to be built. I will require a 15% increase in the number of homes that cities permit, or they will lose federal grants. Those that exceed that target will get a building bonus, so there will be a carrot and a stick. I'll require every federally funded transit station have high-density apartments approved all around and on top. When I was in university, I lived with my dad next to Heritage Station in Calgary, Alberta, which allowed me to get up right before my essay was due, crank it out, run out, jump late onto the train, but arrive early and just in time to submit my paper. I want every kid to be able to procrastinate in university and still pass. Right? But to do that, you need to have homes next to transit stations. Why do we build transit if we don't have homes next to them? And by the way, we're going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings. We have ugly, big, empty federal buildings. Sell them off. Sell them off. You know, it warms my heart to think of the beautiful family pulling up in their U-Haul to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. We're going to sell off thousands of acres of federal land. We're going to get the gatekeepers out of the way. We're going to build homes, 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 build homes. And we're going to reward the builders. We're going to back up the trades, not just the professions, not just the universities. We also have to back up our tradespeople with the same educational support payments to them. And we're going to bring tax fairness. You know, a CEO of a multinational who hops on his private jet can write off the cost of that jet for all his travel. But the electrician and the pipe fitter that goes from Timmins to go and work in Fort Mac or the British Columbia interior has to pay all those travel costs with no write-off whatsoever. Conservatives have a bill that will give tax fairness to traveling tradespeople so they can write off all the expenses of their travel to lodge and travel and move their families around and earn a paycheck. Fairness for the trades. They're the people that build the homes. We want those homes to be in safe neighborhoods. How many of you feel safe today going around your neighborhood? No accountability. Unbelievable. It's gotten unbelievable. You know, did you hear about the robbery that just happened in Ottawa? Robber goes up, pulls out a gun, says to a guy, "Give me all your money." The guy says, "Wait a sec here. Do you know who I am?" Robber says, "No." He says, "I'm Justin Trudeau." Robber said, "In that case, give me all my money." Joking aside, it is a serious problem. The crimes that have been unleashed on the city streets of Vancouver, for example. You know, the same 40 criminals were arrested 6,000 times in Vancouver. In a year, that's 150 arrests per criminal per year. This is a direct result of Trudeau's catch and release criminal justice system. Backed up by Jagmeet Singh, who votes for catch and release. Jagmeet backs up Justin Trudeau, helps them pass these catch and release policies, and the result is violent crime is up 32%. Gangland killings up 92%. Just 2 days ago, a mother was killed by a stray bullet fired from a gun in a tent city in Toronto, held in the hands of a criminal who had violated his probation orders 16 times. Why wasn't he in jail? A Pierre Poilievre-led government will bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders. We're going to stop going after the good guys. Justin Trudeau believes that gangland stabbings and killings in inner cities are the result of hunters and anglers in Nunavut or in Prince George. This is insane. People with a possession and acquisition license are statistically the least likely people to commit a crime with a gun. Now, you don't need a PhD to figure out why, and that is this. A criminal does not stop to get a gun license on the way to robbing a bank, right? So Trudeau's only going after the people who went through the vetting, the training, and the clearing process, the people who store their guns properly, who follow meticulously all of the rules in the system. Ladies and gentlemen, these are good, decent, law-abiding people. Many of them feed themselves by hunting. A Pierre Poilievre-led government will stop the attack on our hunters and our lawful and law-abiding firearms owners. And then there's the drugs. Drug overdoses, up 300% in British Columbia. Now, we have a whole industry of activists and bureaucrats and drug companies that continue to profit off of this misery. We know how it all started. The drug companies started pushing these drugs on the working class suffering people in North America 25 or 30 years ago. They told the medical system the drugs were not addictive or lethal, and they should be prescribed for every ache and pain. And then people got addicted to those drugs, and then they graduated up to higher and worse drugs. That's why the Americans have actually sued those drug companies and recovered $54 billion. But not before all these addictions occurred. And now, the response of our government is to give out even more drugs. Give taxpayer-funded opioids that are as powerful as heroin, but not powerful enough to keep an addict high for more than a couple of months, at which point they start selling those drugs to kids so that they can use the profits to buy more powerful and deadly fentanyl. Then those kids graduate up to fentanyl, and so on and so forth. Trudeau has actually decriminalized crack, heroin, methamphetamines, and other deadly drugs. We're seeing the consequences of this today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a common sense plan to counter it. One, I will ban hard drugs in Canada. Instead of handing out more drugs, we're going to put that money into recovery and treatment. Story of the Oak Foundation in Winnipeg, where Scott Oak, who lost his son Bruce to an overdose, he's a sportscaster, he raised money, created a beautiful place for people addicted to go and get counseling and treatment and detox and exercise and sweat lodges for the First Nations who are there. They then are building an apartment complex, supportive apartments where the graduates can live for several months while they transition back to life, come back for counseling, and even mentor the incoming addicts to help them get off drugs. This is the kind of hopeful way that we can bring home our loved ones drug-free. Bring them home. We'll bring them home. And you know I said we're going to do dollar for dollar? We're going to find the money for all of this. One of the ways we're going to pay for it is I will sue those corrupt pharmaceutical companies. Listen, everything I'm talking about here is just basic common sense, isn't it? It's common sense. The problem is it's gotten uncommon, right? That's the problem in this country. We have a small group of people who think they know better than everybody else. This is funny. The woke movement is really about one thing. It's about one thing, and one thing only. More and more power for them. They have many different pretexts, but only one real motive, and that is power. They divide people based on race, ethnicity, religion, gender, vaccine status. By next year, they'll have come up with a new basis on which to divide people. Why do they want everyone defined by group identity? Because groups are easier to control than free individuals. And that's what they want. Keep people in groups fighting with each other rather than working together, because then they'll turn to the government to look for protection. If they think if you're afraid of your neighbor, then you'll forget you can't pay your rent. That is why you always see Justin Trudeau turning Canadians against each other, calling our citizens names. He wants you to be afraid of your neighbor. It's divide and conquer, my friends. By contrast, they want control. What do we want? We want freedom, right? Here's the difference between freedom and control. There's only 100% control. If one person gets more, everyone else gets less. That's why people fight over control. However, freedom is the opposite. It is limitless. If your neighbor gets more freedom, you get more freedom. If your Muslim friend gets more religious freedom, you don't get less, you get more. If your local small business gets economic freedom from red tape, then you get more economic freedom to buy his products more affordably, and maybe your son or daughter will get the economic freedom to have a job working at that local small business. One person's freedom is another person's freedom. One person can have more, and everyone will have more. That's why instead of divide and conquer, let's unite for freedom in this country. Is bizarre. They think that people can't be trusted to make their own decisions, but that some people should be trusted to make decisions for everyone else. Why? Because they think there's a special type of person made of finer clay, of greater virtue and wisdom, who can decide for all of us. They think that the so-called ordinary people can't decide for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I've met those people up on that hill. And I've met the people out here. And I'll tell you this, if you want to see goodness, greatness, and genius, don't look to those on top, look to those all around you. I can tell you that. My favorite story of Winston Churchill is not the great, or has he been canceled? Are we still allowed to talk about Winston Churchill? We're going to do it anyway. You know, he had written 58 volumes of Nobel Prize-winning literature, but he always admired the common people more than anyone else. My favorite stories is during the great Nazi raids when they would bomb London. He would go out into the streets and see the people and the wreckage. He'd listen to their stories. And one day, he happened upon a lady who was buried in rubble. And he and his staff got down on their knees and they scraped away that rubble and helped her to her feet. and she was shaking and trembling and obviously cut up and bleeding. And as she was helped away, she turned and looked at him and said, "Thank you." He stood in stone silence for several minutes, and then his staff noticed that tears were rolling down his face. And he said, "There goes greatness." You see, Churchill understood that wars were not won by kings or queens or even prime ministers. They were won by defiant little old ladies like that woman. They were won by the barber who downed his scissors to pick up a rifle, by the 16-year-old who lied about his age so that he could come running out of the trenches into a hellfire of bullets. They were won by the tea ladies who rushed into the factories to make the munitions of war. They were won by not the ordinary people, but the extraordinary people. We have those extraordinary people here too, my friends. You see, because the waitress who carries 10 plates on a tray serves 15 tough customers at once, works 12 hours a day, only to come home and help her kid with math, and balances her budget on a minimum wage salary. She is not ordinary, she is extraordinary, my friends. The electrician who captures lightning, runs it through a copper wire to illuminate this room. He is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. The farmer who masters the sciences of the sky and the soil to bring food from his field to your fork is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. These extraordinary people have extraordinary wisdom and extraordinary virtue. They deserve to be masters and not servants in their own country. They may not be famous. When they die, their names may not appear in the headlines of newspapers, words may not be spoken of them in Parliament, but when they walk through heaven's gates, the angels sing for them, because God only knows that they carried their friends, their family, and their nation on their back, and so a quiet hymn goes out for them. There goes greatness. These great common people, the common sense of the common people, united for our common home, your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
We are here talking to one of the supporters of Pierre Poilievre. I saw you doing a little dance in there, and also out here, you had a little chant, you were saying something.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Trudeau must go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so how was the rally for you today?
Oh, phenomenal, phenomenal. During the truckers' convoy, I was watching what was going on in Ottawa, and then all of a sudden Pierre popped up, and my jaw just dropped. Where did this guy come from? I was like, wow. I was crying, actually, to tell you the truth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, and I heard a little bit of a French accent.
No, it's Portuguese.
Oh, it sounded like French because you said...
But I do speak a bit of French too.
Okay, so merci beaucoup.
Bienvenue.
Okay, thank you so much. Very good. So we're talking to some of the people here at the rally for Pierre Poilievre. If somebody else wants to be interviewed, maybe I'll get a couple of people for you. So we're here at the Pierre Poilievre rally. We've got Cam with us here. He's a longtime Surrey resident. How was the rally for you, Cam?
I enjoyed it a lot. I was very happy to hear Pierre talk.
Okay. What was the biggest thing you took away from this today that made you feel like this might be the candidate for you?
I don't know. I just hate,
One of the things he discussed.
Trudeau a lot.
Okay.
And he's anything that opposes Trudeau, I'm with.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm standing here at the Pierre Poilievre rally, and we've got Langley residents here, and they are going to tell us what they thought of the rally.
Well, it was a common sense speech,
Okay.
with hitting all the right issues that concern us.
Okay. What was the biggest takeaway from today for you?
The willingness to review outdated methods that are the gatekeepers, so to speak.
Right.
And that, as an immigrant myself, many years ago, I've seen many people that come with qualifications to this country that, end up with other jobs because they can't make it happen in this country without basically redoing an education that may be as good, or maybe less good than what they had.
Very good. Thank you so much. How was the rally for you?
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A rally here in Surrey today. Tell me, how was it for you, sir?
Oh, almost agree all the points he made today. One of them so impressed me that he says he divide and the Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party and lefties, they divide and conquer. That's basically the same method that in China the CCP Communist Party uses a divide and conquer strategy. Actually, I call it scheme conspiracy.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you. We are talking to Telus, a Surrey resident, and his friend here for support at the rally. What is your name, sir?
It's Graham.
Okay, yes, Graham and Telus. How did you find the rally today?
It's somewhat informative. It was good that he brought up some things about reversing some of the dumb decisions made by Trudeau.
So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ?
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ ਕਈ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਨੌਨਸੈਂਸ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਡਿਸੀਜਨ ਬਣਾਏ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਗਨ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ he took away registered firearms but to reduce violence where violence doesn't happen from registered firearms. Taking away, giving back jobs, etc. Anyhow, that's.
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਕ੍ਰਿਮੀਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੈਚ ਕਰਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਕੈਚ ਕਰਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਸਟੈਟਿਸਟਿਕਸ ਦਾ
ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਹੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਆਲਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡਰੱਗ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ the dangerous drugs ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ decriminalize ਕੀਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ criminalize ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ that's makes sense. Oh, yeah, like what's the point of having fentanyl? Like 2.5 grams of fentanyl. What do you want to do? Kill a stadium, right? Very good. Yeah. Anyhow.
Telus, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Did you want to say anything, Graham?
No, I just want to say he's very positive and very well spoken and very informative, especially with the last spending. He spent more than the last three prime ministers, and his term is. So we just need change, and it was very refreshing to hear him speak. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰੈਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਫਰਮ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਹਿਮਾਂਚਲ ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ
ਆਸ਼ੀਸ਼ ਮੰਡਰਾਲ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਫਰਮ ਸਰੀ ਡੈਲਟਾ
ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਿਮਾਂਚਲ ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ
ਮੁਕੇਸ਼ ਸਿੰਗਲਾ ਫਰਮ ਸਰੀ ਡੈਲਟਾ
ਸੋ ਸਰੀ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਜੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸੁਖਵਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਇਨ BMS ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਕਾਲਜ ਅਭਿਲਾਸ਼ੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਹਿਮਾਚਲ ਪ੍ਰਦੇਸ਼
ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਏ ਹੁਣ ਵਾਓ ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਏ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੈਲੀ ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਆਹ ਵੈਰੀ ਨਾਈਸ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗੀ ਰੈਲੀ
ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਫਰਕ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਇਸ ਰੈਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਰੈਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ
ਇੱਥੇ ਰੀਅਲ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਉਠਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੋਰ ਟਾਈਪ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਜਾਤ ਪਾਤ ਦੀਆਂ ਧਰਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਕਨੋਮੀ ਦੇ ਇਨਫਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਇਨਕਮ ਟੈਕਸ ਲਾਜ਼ ਦੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮਸ ਦੇ ਰੀਅਲ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਉਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉਠਾਈਆਂ ਜਾਣੀਆਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹਦਾ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਤੇ ਫਰਕ ਪਵੇ
ਸੋ ਪੀਅਰ ਪੋਲੀਐਵ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡਾਕਟਰਸ ਤੇ ਨਰਸਿਸ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਸ ਦੇਸ਼ ਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਕੁਆਲੀਫਾਈਡ ਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੈਕਗਨਾਈਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਜਾਂ ਫੂਡ ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਟੈਕਸੀਆਂ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਜੋ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੋਰਨਰ ਸਟੋਰ ਲੈ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡਾਕਟਰਸ ਤੇ ਨਰਸਿਸ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਡ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਸ਼ੋਰਟੇਜ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਪੀਚ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਧੀਆ
ਮੈਡਮ ਜੀ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ and I was a lawyer in India, but in order to become a solicitor and barrister in Canada, it was very difficult licensing process. Maybe for Red Seal to become a plumber, electrician, it is easier, but to be in a profession like a doctor, engineer, chartered accountant, the same equivalence what you had before, it's very difficult. We have shortage of doctors, we have real shortage of professionals, and we have to make it easier because we have the brain but we are not utilizing them in the proper way ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਊਬਰ ਚਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਬੈਰਿਸਟਰ ਐਂਡ ਸੋਲਿਸਿਟਰ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਇਹ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਮੁਕੇਸ਼ ਸਿੰਗਲਾ ਜੀ ਪਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਰਿਸਟਰ ਬਣਨ ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਪਾਪੜ ਵੇਲਣੇ ਪੜੇ ਹੁਣ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬਣ ਪਾਣਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣ ਪਾਣਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਵੈਰੀ ਡਿਫਿਕਲਟ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਲਾਈਕ ਦੈਟ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ what he says that we will bring them back because we need them. Canada society need them.
Thank you so much. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ ओके सत श्री अकाल थैंक यू सो मच थैंक यू हमारे पास अब यातिन है यातिन हमको बताओ आपको ये रैली कैसी लगी
This is amazing rally. हमें बहुत अच्छी लगी. We never been to this kind of rally before. We are new immigrants. Just before 3 years we came. अभी हमने घर लिया है like last year.
आपने घर भी ले लिया है
बट यही कहना चाहता हूँ कि जब हमने लिया था हमने इमेजिन नहीं किया था कि घर के प्राइसेस मॉर्गेज इंटरेस्ट रेट 1.5 गुना तक बढ़ जाएंगे लाइक इट्स टू कॉस्टली राइट नाउ फॉर अस इट्स वी कैन से इट्स अ स्ट्रेस डेली स्ट्रेस एवरी डे मैं मेरी वाइफ को भी बोलता हूँ रात को नींद नहीं आती सोचते हैं कैसे भरेंगे और हमने सुना भी है लोग अपने घर छोड़ देते हैं कई लोग कीज़ दे देते हैं बैंक में अगर यही सिचुएशन रही तो लाइक वी केम इन कनाडा टू सेटल डाउन हियर एंड वी आर वेरी हैप्पी बट we want everything to be at the affordable prices not this much high तो अगर वो हेल्प हमें मिलती है ख़ास करके इमिग्रेंट्स को और ख़ास करके ये बंदों को जो चाहते हैं यहाँ पे खुश होकर रहना जो सही में कनाडा को विश करते हैं कनाडा को लाइक अप्रिशिएट करते हैं that will be really nice thank you
सही बात है शुक्रिया यातिन शुक्रिया we are talking to Salman Paracha Salman how are you
I'm good I can't be better I mean it was a lovely day
Yeah.
Up at the hall, I loved meeting our guy. I mean, Pierre, he's our guy. Okay. He's our guy.
So why is he our guy?
Well, it just makes sense, right? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, especially all the stuff with all of whatever's out there on VMedia and stuff, right? Well, this liberal government, they're anti free speech, and plus the kind of stuff that goes on in schools, from pills to drugs to all that Vogue stuff, drag queens coming and doing all that shows. I don't like any of that. I mean, personally, I hate all of that. I mean, it's just disturbing. I mean, if you're telling kids that the parents are not their safe space and the teachers or those or the groomers, can I say that word? If you're grooming children, I mean, that's just stupid. That's immoral and that's just stupid. I mean, it doesn't really make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rally was enjoyable for you. We appreciate you talking to us.
I love this guy. Yeah, I mean, I'll be here again. If he comes ever again, well, he's got my word. That's one thing, yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
ਵਰਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੈਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗੀ
ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਲਈ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਪੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਪੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਜਿਸ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਜਿੱਤੂਗਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨੂੰ
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਪੀਚ ਸੀਗੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੰਬੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਪਰ ਹਰੇਕ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੁਸ਼ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਕਮੀ ਲੱਗੀ
ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਕਮੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਗਲਤ ਆ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਤਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਾਈਬ ਸੀਗੀ ਰੈਲੀ ਦੇ ਚੋ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ
No, not even in words. It was too good.
Okay, so one last thing for the people that are watching. You can say whatever you feel.
ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ Pierre Poilievre ਨੂੰ vote ਕਰੋ. Time for change. Time for cheaper living. You know, we all experience. You know, our prices are going up, and yeah, there's no other better solution.
Very good. Thank you so much for talking to us. We are talking to David and Atif. They were at the rally today, and I did say to Atif, I said, "Ajo, ajo," because I thought he spoke Punjabi, but Punjabi de vich nahi gal karde, so I said, "Game cho."
Ajo, ajo.
Oh, there you go. So Gujarati. How did you feel about the rally today?
It was amazing. Lots of power, lots of energy, and everyone's all there together for one reason. And I think there's going to be a great outcome from today, for sure.
Right. So how did you feel about the talk about immigration and elevating the education of immigrants that come to this country and to use their qualifications here?
Well, that's more important because we want them to give back to our economy, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. But sometimes they're being held back from that alleviation, that kind of gate that's closing them off. And I think this will help alleviate that stress for sure.
Thank you, Atif. David, what would you like to say about tonight's rally?
Well, pretty much the same thing. I mean, we're all here all together as one community for a big change. Like I said, I met a lot of great people, and definitely I hope that there could be a big change.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰੈਲੀ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਈ ਨਾਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਐਥਨਿਕ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਰਾਉਂਡ ਟੇਬਲ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਿਆ ਹੋਪਫੁਲੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਇਆ ਪਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਰੈਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਐਕਸਾਈਟਮੈਂਟ ਸੀਗੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੀਅਰ ਪੋਲੀਐਵ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦੱਸੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਖਰਚਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਕਾਸਟ ਆਫ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਕਾਰਬਨ ਟੈਕਸ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਆਪ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਏ ਲੋਕ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਪੀਅਰ ਪੋਲੀਐਵ ਬਾਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੋ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਇਹ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੀ ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵੈਸਟ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਫॉर ਵਾਚਿੰਗ